From SBI's Executive Briefing Center in Dallas, Texas, the most watched and listened to content in B2B sales and marketing, it's the SBI Podcast with your host, Matt Shares.
Welcome to SBI TV, a weekly show dedicated to helping you make your number. Today, we're going to explore the true meaning of customer experience. What a topic. I'm your host, Matt Shares. I'm the CEO of SBI. Joining us in the studio today is Brad Christian. Brad's the Chief Customer Officer of Market Force Information. Market Force serves multi-location businesses by providing a wide array of customer experience management solutions, analytics, and reporting technology. If you think about their solutions, they help clients protect their brand reputation, they delight them, and make them more money. So Brad, first off, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt. Great to be here.
Yeah, good to see you. So I think as a way of getting started, it would be great for you just to give the audience a little bit of a history lesson on you, kind of how you ended up in the CCO role, and then I'll have you talk about Market Force and what you do and how maybe the audience should think about you.
Sure. So obviously, Brad Christian, I'm our Chief Customer Officer, and have been with the company for about 13 years now and work with our existing clients, walking them through best practices and some of the innovations in the space, as well as responsibility for our new business development team in terms of acquiring additional new clients.
Great.
I work in our Atlanta, Georgia global headquarters office.
Okay. But then you guys are global as a company, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then if I was not familiar with Market Force, right? Where would I bump into your solutions? What would be an example where I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense?
So Market Force provides a variety of what we refer to as customer experience solutions. These are a variety of different measures that we use to help different brands evaluate how they're executing against customer expectations. And kind of our secret sauce and what makes us different is we have a large variety of those measures and then a sophisticated analytics process that allows us to tie the results from those measures to financial performance to help our clients really understand three critical things. One, what matters most to their customers? Where do they have gaps in execution? And ultimately, what's the financial ROI they can derive by taking on one initiative over another?
Okay. And would you be seeing more in, are there certain verticals or certain end markets where we might bump into you more? I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is I think about anybody that's in the restaurant and food business. Right. Like you're there checking, validating experience, driving sort of post-experience text messages, that whole ecosystem. Is that a fair pedestrian representation that I'm giving?
Yeah. Restaurants, retailers, supermarket, convenience stores, those kinds of businesses are big users of our service.
Great business.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. All right, so Brad and I are gonna have a great time talking about customer experience because I think he's gonna be able to teach us a lot. So if you're watching or listening and you don't wanna miss any of the shows that SBI produces, to access our content library, if you're an iPhone user, all you have to do is download the SBI app via the Apple Store, search for Sales Benchmark Index, set up your notifications, and then we can keep you company as you commute, as you travel, or maybe your morning workout. So, customer experience, it's all the rage, right? Software vendors, consulting companies, my firm, we all talk about it. The CMOs and CEOs tell the marketplace why their experience is superior to competition. But in many ways, we suffer from this definitional crisis because it means different things to different people. I think Brad is uniquely, and I believe you're uniquely qualified to educate all of us around this concept of what it truly means, right? Especially consumer markets are hyper-focused on it. They typically lead the way around versus, business-to-business organizations. Right. So I guess as a way of getting started, how do you think about measuring customer expectations and kind of set that foundation for us? And then you and I can sort of pick off some use cases as we go through the show.
I think that's a great way to start the conversation. From our perspective, the customer experience really is derived from two very different lenses. How a business executes on its brand standards, how it operationalizes and consistently delivers against those customer expectations is critically important. So, what's the experience that takes place when the customer first comes to your website? What's their first interaction when they walk into a store? The interaction with the sales personnel, what that sales process is like. Those are having a very operational perspective on whether you are or are not executing on your brand promise, and that's typically captured through a mystery shopping program, the ability to walk in and kind of inspect what you expect as a business. But that's half the equation. The other half of the equation is how do consumers react to those operational execution? How do I feel? And a big part of that is using survey programs to get at, overall how satisfied are customers with the experience? How likely are they to return? How likely are they to recommend you to friends, family members, and colleagues? And so it's the combination of the operational and the experiential measures that really define what customer experience measurement is.
So, Brad, I often see, and in the almost 14 years we've been doing this, for B2B companies, when we ever use the term mystery shop and sort of go through a customer experience, when we first meet a client or a prospective client and we explain that we sort of emulate the buyer's journey, they get stuck, try to envision how we do that. They typically go, okay, in the consumer environment, that totally makes sense, but how do you do it in a business-to-business environment? Like, what's it like to engage with a rep? When I fill out a contact me form on a business-to-business website, how long till somebody engages? What's the interaction like? Do they send me content? Is it custom? So we do all that and they go, I get it. So that's a lead-in because most of the people watching this show are business-to-business leaders like you, chief commercial officers, CEOs, CMOs.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about some of the different types of mystery shops that you guys see, do, and maybe how you might recommend folks think about that view.
Well, it's interesting. You gave great examples. So when you talk about B2B, we have clients today that want to understand, okay, so you hit my website and you did the contact me or you filled out the form, how long was it until we got contact? Did you get talked about this promotion over that promotion? When you started to go down a path towards a certain product, did you get this reaffirming value proposition established? Did they ask for the sale? Did they invite you to transact with them, bring you down to the store? Whatever those things are, all those operational yes-no kinds of questions get evaluated in that process. And that's so important because so many times, there isn't an objective lens into execution.
Yep.
And as I think I remember in some of your content, it's all about execution, because without it, your business struggles, and that's where the rubber hits the road, or meets the road in terms of, do we execute on the brand promise? We have an idea here in the corporate office about what we're supposed to be doing, but does my frontline staff, does my business, does the model support and align to that?
Okay, so I get that. What if we go maybe, I guess, a level down? A lot of people have contact centers, call centers, right? Centralized folks, and they're thinking about this inbound motion and how does it feel and how are we doing? Do you have a different view? Is there a different mechanism that you guys use to help companies understand how that's working? Because it has a sort of negative, ooh, here comes a call center, right? And what's that experience like?
Yeah. Well, no, it's you're right. I mean, the majority of inbound traffic that we would see in our contact center services for our clients is it's complaints. It's folks that there was a defect in the process, in the system, and I'm calling to complain about it. But there are informational calls where I just want to clarify, this topic. And believe it or not, there is a small percentage of customers that call to compliment corporations and how the experience, and we call those praise calls. But even though people might say, oh, this is just a bunch of complaints, in the customer experience realm, we see a tremendous amount of value in those complaints because it's important to understand what's being complained about. And in terms of the order of magnitude, is this the number one complaint by a long shot? Is it one of 4 things that we consistently see?
Yeah.
And how do we understand how we're executing across the different touch points? Because if we see there's certain topics that are getting complained about consistently, then you drill down one level more to say, where is that a problem?
Right.
So even though, like you said, it's sort of, there's great data in there, and at the end of the day, and I'm sure you'll get to it in a bit, is how much data is being created by companies today, and how do you leverage that data asset to get to some insight?
Right. Okay, so then my last question in this segment around expectations, and you had mentioned patterns. So now I'll go to social. I'm not even sure how to think about like the social media monitoring, especially for some of the consumer companies. That's a huge task. And I know people do it and they do it well. What's market forces? What's your opinion relative to social and how people should think about that from a CX standpoint?
Well, we're seeing social media just explode, and there was a time when it was just a channel where there was communication and you might say something about a brand and it was just sort of you complaining to the marketplace about it, and that was it. But we're seeing brands be very intentional now and watching for that and engaging. And in fact, the social media practice really is 2 things. The first is looking at ratings and the numbers, the 1 stars, the 2 stars, the 3 stars on Yelp, Google, Facebook, TripAdvisor, et cetera, because those numbers mean something, and it gets back to that data asset. So trying to figure out what's the value of an extra half a star in your aggregate ratings. That's an important part, and we just refer to that as social ratings. But the other piece that I alluded to just a moment ago is the social media monitoring, or what maybe people call social care. It's actually waiting for a consumer to say, I had a really bad experience with brand. And the consumer now doesn't just do that because they want to get something off their chest. They're actually saying, hey brand, react to me. I'm complaining about you. I actually want you to engage me, almost as if I picked up the phone to call you and talk to your contact center agent. And so the companies most companies are starting to pick up on this, and they're deploying. We do a lot of this work, and it's growing dramatically with a lot of our client base, but even companies that don't work with us understand the value of, trying to get something before it goes viral, trying to talk to a consumer and make sure they take that offline, resolve it, and I guess call it customer recovery, trying to recover that customer so you protect the lifetime value of that person.
That term, social care, I love that. So what about the B2B world? Do you have a recommendation or advice for those that are watching that are more B2B oriented, which is a greater part of our audience relative to social care and adopting some of these best practices that you see?
Yeah, all brands have the opportunity to benefit or not from the reality that social media is everywhere, and that people are on it commenting constantly. So even B2B businesses that have people that might get on a social channel and talk about them need to be listening.
Okay, helpful. All right, so this segment, Brad and I are going to spend some time talking about how does one tie customer experience to financial performance. We're going to pull that thread through. So if you think about it this way, so many of you that are watching have a large customer base, and you want, at a minimum, to expand this current list of customers. And customer experience initiatives can be expensive, right? Because they touch so many parts of an organization. So Brad, as you think about experience measures, customer experience measures, and then pulling the thread through to ROI, financial performance, almost like the lens of the CFO, who's typically pragmatic, skeptical, says that's fluffy, right? Advice for the group?
No, you nailed it. I mean, customer experience as an industry has been evolving for the last few years now, and ultimately understanding, like what we talked about, how you're executing on your brand promise, and how consistently deliver, but also understanding how customers feel about that. Like you said, they're sort of squishy. They're just sort of interesting numbers. They're interesting only until you can tie them to financial performance. And so the leading firms in the space are getting really good at, and even organizations on their own are getting good at modeling and taking these disparate inputs, operational, experiential, objective, subjective measures, and tying it back to financial performance, because as you said, most of us are all focused on, comped on financial performance. So any good customer experience program needs to have a financial component to it, because honestly, these programs can be incredibly expensive. And there's a big investment, and so executives in the C-suite want to understand, what am I getting out of this? And so we talk often about leveraging your data asset and making sure that you're getting predictive insight into where should we be investing as a business.
So that's where I was going to go next, is how do I get predictive? So as I hear you say that, I'm even thinking about leading SBI and saying, what is it that I can be doing during projects, right? Where we're 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in on a 15 or 16 week project, where I'm getting indicators that say that's predictive that on week 15, the client's going to go, wow, unbelievable result. Or this is predictive that, we're going the wrong way. Advice on predictive analytics for B2B?
We see it all over the industry. There's a tremendous amount of investment in analysts, data scientists, PhD statisticians to try to take and harness this data. At the end of the day, a customer experience measurement program needs to really help a business answer 3 questions. What matters most to their customers? Where are the gaps? Where are they not executing against best practices or brand standards? And ultimately, where is the financial ROI? So which initiative should we be investing in over another? And what is that ROI, right? So that you have an understanding in your position, okay, so if this is a $1 million opportunity, you've got an order of magnitude on what it is you think you should invest against it and what return you should expect. But if it's a $100,000 opportunity, then that may not, it's a pecking order thing. And so you sort of, and I think the question you asked is, how does that analytics work get there? you wind up identifying attributes of the business, various attributes that we would establish on the front side of the program to figure out which of those are mathematically and statistically tied to the KPI that you're looking to drive. And there are a variety of KPIs. You know, most companies, it's same-store sales growth, it's revenue, but there's other industries like net activations, RevPAR. It's something the hospitality space looks at. It's called revenue per available room, gallons sold. In the petro convenience, we have a shared client that they care all about gallons sold. And so their analytics is all about how do I help my operators sell more gas?
What I love about what you said, though, is I'm thinking about allocation, and you talked about like attributes, and I'm thinking about a $1 million opportunity versus a $100,000 opportunity, and you know, I'm in a project-based business, right? So yeah, the $100,000 opportunity, you want to give a good outcome, but there's a set of indicators and how much sort of cost to serve I want to deploy as I think about what we can do versus the $1 million opportunity, and making sure that I've got a commensurate view on that. I mean, that's a very helpful way to think about it. So then how about different functions? So it seems like in the world of customer experience, it's not just a customer support, customer success, customer service, call it what you want, operations.
Right.
Everybody needs to be pulling on the rope to make it happen.
Right.
IT, ops, finance, right? Services. Advice for people on how to think about who should be doing what relative to the customer experience. And is it an everybody thing, or is there truly a lead horse?
No, it's an everybody thing. We as a business have had the luxury of working with over 200 clients across the globe, and we've been fortunate to work with some really fantastic brands. And what we've been able to do is study those organizations and say, so what do they do that allows them to, you know, outpace their competitors in the segment? And we've cobbled that into a five best practices, sort of best practices framework. And the first one is strategy. And so what we see oftentimes is, like you said, it touches everyone, but executives sometimes have a challenge of getting the message or the strategy permeated throughout the organization. And so that's one of the challenges that we see. And so the companies that do that the best excel in terms of outpacing the competition. And an example that I can think of, one of our clients spends $0 a year on marketing. They're very successful, but they spend no money on marketing. And what they do is they allocate the funds that they would normally use to promote, advertise, and you know, market the brand. They use that to measure how well they're executing on the brand promise, and in turn also compensate team members for how they're performing. And so a lot of the executives that we talk with early days push back on the notion of, well, they've got a comp plan. I shouldn't have to incent these behaviors. I shouldn't have to incent these CX, you know, attributes. But we disagree. We think that if you put the right kind of compensation and structure around this, you can drive really outsized results. And so this particular organization, they're not looking to invest in any one kind of marketing. They're trying to drive, you know, customer advocacy and you know, raving brand fans, if you will, because they get the best kind of marketing of all, which is word of mouth marketing.
Wonderful. That was a high impact segment. So Brad and I, in this final segment, we're going to talk about third-party perspectives about customer experience. So far, he and I have been discussing the relationship between the customer and a vendor supplier, internal capability. So now we're going to talk about third parties and helping companies understand this. So I guess if I'm watching and I say, I agree it's important, I think I've got some improvement to make, I need to get some analytics, I got to get the functions on board, and I sort of follow the sequence of our show. Now I say, how do third parties help me deliver a customer experience?
Well, obviously I'm biased.
Yeah, that's okay.
But
I think I'm biased too, because right now you haven't said anything I disagree with.
Right.
So
great. So in terms of third parties, this topic is customer experience is so popular. It's really hot, like you talked about before. And so a lot of organizations we see are starting to bring in their own internal teams. And in fact, we even see titles called Chief Experience Officer. So we're seeing companies get it and try to adopt their own teams. You know, I think from our perspective, the challenge with that is, you know, just like I probably wouldn't go into a court of law and try to represent myself, and we probably wouldn't try to, you know, perform surgery on ourselves.
Right.
We have the same point of view about trying to run your own customer experience measurement program. There are a lot of firms that are available in the marketplace that would sell you the software to execute your own program, and you could write your own surveys and you could do your own collection, and there might be some analytics built into the technology. But by working in a kind of an insular, on your own fashion, you don't have the benefit of best practices from organizations that maybe have been doing it for a long time. And I think the other thing too is that and you asked about it at the top of the first segment is what kind of businesses do we work with? Believe it or not, there's tremendous value in me telling a restaurant organization what a petro-convenience brand is doing. There's great value in me telling a retailer what a restaurant company is doing. And so having that ability to kind of talk across different industries, best practices, sharing, and the like is a value. And usually the investment with a third party like a market force is going to be less than had you gone and done everything on your own. And you run the risk of perhaps not having the best thinking because you've just got one myopic view of that experience and that brand.
Love it. Okay, so then is there a set of, I guess, best practices or sort of rules of the road that you see from third parties relative to like the types of actionable insight that they deliver back to customers, to folks?
Well, I think, a lot of times executives get in a room. You talked about the different functional areas. They all get in the room, and many times those executives have a lot of experience in their business.
Yep.
And so they come to the table with a lot of gut instincts and intuition, and they say, I've been doing this for so long, I know what the customer wants.
The curse of expertise.
Yeah. And what we see all the time, and in fact, it's interesting, sometimes we even surprise ourselves. When we let the data do the talking, when we take the operational measures, when we take the customer feedback, when we take what they're calling to complain about, and we let that flow into the analytics process and the modeling and tie that to financial performance, the insights that are derived from that process almost always surprise the executive team, but even sometimes surprise us and allows us to give them what we refer to as a strategic blueprint for investment. So here's the possible uplift in your business, here's the ROI that you can chase, and here's the area that you need to focus, and based on work we've done with other clients, the motion that you might want to drive for this particular initiative would be this. And we think based on the analytics, you can see this kind of return. And that allows all of the executives at the table to align behind a common goal because it's no one person's idea or focus. It's a data-driven outcome or a data-driven insight that everybody can rally behind.
This is fascinating. I could keep going, but I have to honor the time commitment here. So we often run into clients who they want to do a customer experience project, right? As you said, it's a hot thing. Last couple of years, it's like this way. So but it's project based. And there's always this thing where you go out, you build the journey maps, and you understand what customers want, what's digital, what's analog, human to human, where do you put resources? We've got this whole methodology. But then, it's not I don't have a home, I need to build a home, and now I'm done. It's, I need to play catch up, or maybe leapfrog and go where the puck is going, but you can't stop. So do you have a point of view on sort of ongoing iteration, ongoing evolution, not too much, but not too little? Like, what do you see from brands that are nailing this?
Yeah, so I think that's a great qualifier, brands that are nailing this. I think that's important. Any investment that a business makes in understanding their customers' expectations is a good investment, full stop. That said, there are some times where a company will sort of do a one-and-done initiative and say, hey, now we know what the customer wants, we're going to spend a bunch of time trying to drive to delivering against it. And that's not all bad. But the companies, like you said, that are nailing it, and there are many, by the way, they're very intentional about being very consistent. We're gonna measure, we're gonna see how we execute against, and then we're gonna sort of run through this whole gamut of effort, and we're gonna get to the end, and we're gonna say, okay, did we get the lift that we expected? And if there's some meaningful share of that ROI that was projected, then it's all about going back around and repeating it. And it's kind of like the shampoo bottle, right? You flip it over and the instructions are rinse and repeat. So it's all about marketing and promoting your brand, ensuring that you've got engaged staff in your organization on the front line, and making sure that, and with engaged staff, they'll delight customers. And those delighted customers do two things that are more impactful to your business. One, they're going to return more frequently, and two, they're going to refer you and recommend you to friends, family members, and colleagues. And when that happens consistently enough, the financial results come, and it's just a constant loop, because new things, as you optimize on some defects, you start to learn there's other opportunities. And some of our clients, candidly, we've got a few that have been working with us for over 10 years now, and we continue to raise the bar with them. So they've done a nice job of sort of raising their performance levels, and it's about identifying what else can they be working on and then continuing to rise expectations.
Man, Brad, you knocked it out of the park. So high impact, all three segments. So a big thank you to Brad for coming by the studio and sharing his wisdom relative to customer experience. As you could tell, I was taking notes, so there was some good learning going on, so hopefully you enjoyed it. It's always a gift to be able to spend time, and I appreciate your eyes and your ears. Brad, once again, thank you for your generosity and continued success to you and the Market Force team.
Likewise.
And for those of you out there, we wish you good luck as you try and make your number.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on the studio, SBI's Executive Briefing Center, our team, or to schedule a workshop, please visit salesbenchmarkindex.com.